Greetings, Dukies, Year 9 students, getting ready to choose your options. My name's Chris. Now, normally, I'd be coming in to have a chat with you now, to have a bit of a look at what you're going to be doing next with your GCSE choices. My role is your careers advisor at the Duke of York's Royal Military School. I work for an organisation called CXK, a local organisation that provides career support to lots of students across the whole of the South East. My day-to-day work is going to lots of different schools, seeing lots of different students, just like yourselves, when you're getting ready to think about what you're going to be doing next. Now, it could be that I see you in Year 9, or it's likely that you'll see myself or my colleague Emma in Year 10, Year 11, when you're starting to think about post-16 choices, and even sixth form if you stay with us at the Duke of York's. Now, the idea of today's little vlog is to give you a bit of support and guidance to help you have a think about what your choices might be and where they might lead. The other thing that we're going to be having a look at is thinking about what's going on for you in terms of how you're developing and what that might mean for your career. Now, if you need to see me or access any support, if you just message Mr. King, he will be able to get a message to me and I can respond to you by email at this time. The reason we're doing this vlog is that things are certainly a little bit challenging at the moment in the UK, but that support, should you need it, is still there. There's plenty of support available on the CXK website as well, with lots of useful resources. If you want to have a look at these, the website you need to go to is www.cxk.org and then /blog or resources, depending on what you want to have a look at. In the blog, you will find a Year 9 blog aimed at parents and carers, which you can have a look at yourself or share with your parents and carers that will help you. In the resources are loads of useful websites to help you with your current research into careers and what it might mean for you. So that's there for you to have a look, and I'll remind you of that at the end of the session. Now, what's happening with you? Now, one of the really important things I would like you to start to think about is what's normal with careers and with what's normal when you start to think about how you develop and how careers develop. So, quick question to you all. At what age do you think most people know what they want to do when they're older? Now, if we were to take my son's Ted here as an example, imagine this is you and you've just been born. Okay? And we imagine a timeline running all the way across like this. Now, some people think that you should know what you want to do at 16. No. Most of us don't really know what we want to do until we're closer to around about 30. And that's because you go through some different life stages. The first life stage you go through is what we call the fantasy stage, and it lasts from around about 0 to around about 12 or 13. And this is the bit where you dream big and you might imagine that you're going to be a superhero or something. Now, from 13 to 30, the period of life that you're about to enter, this is called the explorative phase. And the idea is that the more things that you explore during this time, the closer you'll get to knowing what you want to do. Now, one of the ways that you could explore things is choosing your GCSE options. But your GCSE options and choices are made within a much bigger context. Now, pop quiz question. Do you know what the biggest risk is to your career in the next 20 years? Some might also see it as an opportunity. Well, it's automation. It's robots. And there's lots of different sorts of robots around and computers, but robots are affecting the jobs that we may do in the future, and it's happening fast. So there was a study that was done by Deloitte and Oxford University, and they looked at the rate of automation in the next 20 years. So I'll just give you a few figures just to help you think about this. So physicists as a job are unlikely to be automated. They have a 20% chance. When we look at something like an accountant, so someone who looked at the money coming in, coming out of a business, they have a 95% chance of automation because their jobs are very easily automated or done by robots or computers. A finance manager, though, so that's a job that's what we call in the same job family as an accountant, only has a 7% chance of automation. And that's because although they're doing the similar work to an accountant, their jobs are harder to be done by computers because it requires people skills. Teachers, you might want to be interested to know, only have a 1% chance of automation. And again, it's because of their empathy and their people skills. Lastly, how about something like a bricklayer? 82% chance of automation. Now, the reason for this is that although with a bricklayer, it's a very straightforward job, and there are currently bricklaying robots, the cost of the robot is more expensive than the cost of the actual bricklayer at the moment. But the point at which that robots become cheaper on the building sites of England and Wales and Scotland, at that point we might start to see them, and at that point we might start to see those jobs being replaced. So you need to be aware of this. And again, if you have a look on the CXK website under the resources section, you can find some websites to help you explore which jobs are at the chances of automation. But there's a couple of ground rules to be thinking of with this. Jobs that are creative, artistic jobs. These are jobs that are harder to automate by robots, so the creative professions may keep you safer. The jobs where there's complex problem-solving skills, so the actual engineers and scientists who design the robots, they may keep you safe. If you go into the world of business, maybe consider whether you look at accountancy or look at something like the finance manager, which has those complex people skills that, again, very hard for robots to do. But also think about where else creativity can be used. Creativity within business. So maybe that you don't do something in the arts, but you use your creative problem solving in business instead to maybe set up your own business. These are ways in which you can challenge and beat the robots at their own game. So just be mindful of this and have a look at some of the resources. Now, taking things a little bit further. You're going to have to choose some options, and you're going to have a think about what's going to be suiting you best. Now, one way of choosing your options is to think about them in terms of how you can future-proof yourself against robots, but there's lots of other ways that you can choose as well. Now, in terms of how it works with the choices that you're making, some people might choose some subjects that they just enjoy, that they're just good at, and then they will bank those skills for later. So let me give you an example. Imagine you really like reading. Okay, and you're really good at books. You know, you enjoy reading, you're passionate about it. You might do a subject that lends itself to it, like history. You might not know what you're going to do with history at this point, which, as we mentioned earlier, is completely normal to not know what you want to do yet. But what you might find is, say, 20 years down the line, that the skills that you gain from your history, you then transfer into another job. So, just as a case in example, I chose history when I was doing my GCSEs. I had no idea I was going to be a careers advisor when I was your age, but here I am using the skills for research into careers, the skills that I gained from research into history when I was choosing my GCSE history. And we call these transferable skills. So you may choose subjects just because you enjoy them and then hope to transfer those skills later. Give you another example. You may decide to do something with maybe art or DT, and you might then decide to use that to go into special effects. So, engineering and art combined together, we get something like this. Special effects, film props. Yep, you may decide to take your art and use it in more traditional ways. You may decide to take art because you're interested in becoming an illustrator, and that's another way to choose your options. So say, for example, you want to be an illustrator of comic books when you're older. Taking art now would be a very sensible choice. So you may have a career in mind where taking these subjects can help you. So have a think about whether that's one way that you're going to choose. But there are other ways to choose. A bit to be aware of is that the better grades that you get now for your GCSEs as you work your way through, the more options that you will have come post-16. So whether you want to do sixth form, college, an apprenticeship, or go on to university later, the more grades that you gain, the more options you have. So you may choose subjects because you're good at them. You also need to be aware that some subject combinations are useful for some careers when you're older. So, for example, things like architecture. Art combined with maths opens up the doors into those areas as a very traditional way through. So you need to be mindful if there's things that you want to do. If you need help with that, again, have a look at the resources on the website, or please drop me an email via Mr. King. Other things to be aware of when choosing your subjects, because some of these subjects can lend themselves to different opportunities in the future. So when you're looking at your options, just be aware with the optional subjects how they can shape your future. So let me explain. Modern foreign language. If you decide not to take modern foreign languages now or don't have the option to do so, this is one of the hardest subjects to pick up again later. So if it's something you're leaning towards, consider it carefully and if you're good at it. In terms of the career side of things, what we're hearing, things from the British Council, they recently did a study of what the shortage subjects are over the next few years. Those are Spanish, Arabic, Mandarin, French and German. These are the subjects that the economy has a shortage of that we're going to need people who can do. So if you're thinking of working in these areas, or maybe if it's like something like international business abroad, having these subjects can be helpful. Again, you might choose something like modern foreign languages though, because you want to go on holiday to these countries. Again, it's another way to think about your subject choices. Other subjects to consider: history and geography. If you don't take history or geography now but want to do them for sixth form, you will find the majority of sixth forms would have wanted you to have already taken them. It used to be a few years ago that if you hadn't taken it, but then you changed your mind later, if your English or your science was strong enough, they would let you do history or geography respectively. Nowadays, what sixth forms are telling us is that they want you to have studied them for your GCSEs in an ideal world. From there, they can see whether you've got the skills in those areas to be able to take them further. In terms of where they could help you with their careers, history, as we've already said, very good for essay writing skills and information analysis, so careers like law or international business, when you combine it with language, become very common pathways for history graduates if you decide to take that path. When we look at geography, geography is divided into the earth sciences but also human geography. The earth sciences, of course, include things like meteorology, geology. If you're interested in these, geography is a very useful subject. If you're looking on the human side, it links to things like sociology, psychology, anthropology, international relations, things like politics. So again, it's a useful one to have. So if these are kind of career pathways you're thinking that you want to go down, these subjects can help you. When we look at the arts, something to bear in mind with these is that although you can do the arts later, if you wanted to, the longer you practice, the better you get. If you decide not to take the arts now, but then say you come and see myself or my colleague Emma in year 11 and decide I want to go down an arts pathway, you'll find that you'll have to go to college and do some of that study again from a lower level to catch up on what you've missed, unless you've been doing art in your own time. Art, of course, opens up lots of opportunities that we've already mentioned for things like architecture, but all the way through to things like special effects, visual effects. Working as an artist, whether that's a fine artist or a tattoo artist, it's a useful subject to have for those kind of skills. It also helps with creative thinking skills and thinking outside the box. Food tech and DT, or engineering. If you decide not to take these now, you can of course go back to college later and catch them up again later, much like with art, but what you might find is taking them now will help you to work out whether it's something you want to do in the future. So I have a lot of students that I work with in year 11 who tell me that what they want to do for post-16 has been influenced by the choices they made for their GCSEs. Sometimes they've had a go at a subject and they've loved it, and therefore they're really passionate about taking it further. Or they've had a go at a subject and they've hated it, therefore they've put them off that area, but they've been able to work out which direction they want to go for their career. Now, what we're starting to allude to here is the importance of research. It is really important to find out what these subjects are like for GCSEs. Although you've been doing them now to a certain extent in school, what you'll find is that taking them to a higher level to GCSEs, they're very different. The syllabus changes, it's more in depth, and there's more things to cover. So my first recommendation is that you speak to your subject teachers and find out what these subjects are like. Find out how they're taught, how long you'll be doing them, what the homework might be like. Really get to grips with what's involved with these subjects. Do some careers research to see where they might lead and find out whether they're for you. Be cautious of choosing a subject just because your friend is doing it or you like the teacher. Teachers come and go, and sometimes what you might find yourself is sitting in a subject for a couple of years next to your mate, but you really don't like that subject. So think about what you want. Think about what's important for you when you're choosing these subjects. It may be that you choose them because you love them. It may be because you choose them because you want to try something out. Whatever you do, please do your research. Now, that research, just to bring you back, you can find websites at the cxk.org website, and you can find the blog for year 9 where you can find out a bit more about choosing your options. Whatever you decide to do though, I wish you the best of luck. I hope your decision making goes well, and if you get stuck, please drop me a line via Mr. King, or alternatively you can contact me via CXK and I can email you back and have a chat with you. When we're back in school, all of us together, you can also come and see me or my colleague Emma, again available via Mr. King. But I wish you the best of luck, stay safe, stay well, and hopefully see you all soon.